Hello everybody who is watching and welcome to the ToniSport Newsfeed. I think we are facing a quite hot summer again, and today we want to talk a little bit about all the options you have to keep your electronics running as cool as possible in your car, because what you really don't want to have is that you have to finish a race before the finish line because of overheated motors or speed controllers. And there are quite some small tweaks here and there you can do, and you can take influence on the temperature of your electronics. So let's get it started. We take a closer look at my car and I will explain you all the options you have to keep it running cool. So normally at this first stage of the video I had in mind to show you my temperature gun, but I cannot find it. Maybe I gave it away to somebody else at a track and forgot to collect it again. It doesn't matter. I think you know what I mean. There are a lot of different types of temperature guns available. You can measure the temperature of your electronics with this infrared device, and it's very helpful to have something like that on the track, because with the temperature gun you can always check your temperatures on your speed control and on your motor, and especially when you are racing on a track you don't know and you have to figure out which is the best gearing, then it's very helpful, because you can check it after 2 minutes, after 4 minutes and after the run. And when you then change your gearing, or maybe change to a cooling fan in your car, you can see how much you affect the electronics with your change, because it's sometimes not so easy to feel it with your hands if your speed controller is now 5 degrees cooler or maybe 10 degrees cooler. And sometimes these are little things, they are very important and very important to check. So first of all, own a temperature gun when you go to the racetrack, and if you don't have one until now, just check the ToniSport shop and get your own temperature gun for the perfect, cool operating electronics in your car. So we are now under the hood of my racing car, and first of all we want to talk about the cooling fans in the car. Most of the speed controllers, they come together with a cooling fan in the package, and I recommend to use the cooling fan at all the time. Maybe on some super small and super slow tracks you can go without a cooling fan, but normally most of the drivers, they always use it, because it keeps the internal temperature of the speed controller quite low, and the speed controller will have a better performance when it's not working too hot. Looking to the fan here on the motor, you have two different options when you're running a touring car. To mount the fan, you can mount it here directly behind the motor with a small gap between, and you also can mount the fan here between speed control and motor if you have your electronic setup in a way that you have enough space. And these positions are the most common positions in touring cars. In other cars, in Formula cars, or maybe in front wheel drive cars, the positions, they are a little bit different, but overall the target we all have is the same. We want to keep the motor running as cool as possible, and you can use fans with 30 millimeters or with a 40 millimeters sides, and you always should make sure that you have a fan with enough RPM, so with enough power to cool the motor as maximum as possible. One tip regarding the cooling fan: most of the cooling fans, they come with a lead and with a connector, which is normally used to get here plugged into the receiver, and then your fan will get the BEC voltage power from your receiver, so normally 6 volts or 7.4 volts maximum, and the cooling fan will not operate with the maximum RPM if you are doing it like this. So a lot of drivers, they use the cables to connect the cooling fan directly to the speed controller, to the plus and minus cable, which is going then to the battery. So you will provide the full battery power to your cooling fan, which means when you have a full charged 2S battery pack, you will have 8.4 volts, which your cooling fan is operating with, and you will have a higher RPM and a maximum cooling effect on your motor. Then you have to check that your motor is not too close on your, that the cooling fan is not mounted too close on your motor. Sometimes if you have stock motors with super strong magnets, it can happen that the cooling fan is stopping when you are accelerating because of the super strong magnets in the motor. So always keep a distance from maybe 3-4 millimeters from the cooling fan to the motor, and you should be on the good side of it. There are a lot of different fans available from all different manufacturers, and just buy what you like the most, and you will have a good effect running with a cooler motor and having more performance. Now we are talking a little bit more about the speed controller. You can adjust some things in the speedo. First of all, you have the option to work with all the power settings, with the turbo, with the boost when you're running in open classes. Always keep in mind that these settings, when you're going crazy with them, they will produce heat, and also with the drag brake will also produce heat as higher the value is. So be careful when you change your power settings, and even when you are running in a stock classes where you have a gearing limit and you maybe have to run in the blinky mode, you can adjust things like drag brake as well, and also you can adjust the initial drive, which is a value which gives you more power out of the corner, more punch, when you adjust the initial drive to a high level. But this as well will produce more heat, and you have always to make sure that you need a very high amount of initial drive, that you can handle it and that you really have a benefit on the racetrack. If you don't feel a clear benefit in your lap times and on the track, then you maybe should go a little bit lower with the initial drive again to prevent the speedo from getting too hot in the center. Then you also have the chance to use two options on the speed controller to shut off when it's getting too hot. You have a temperature shut off option for the motor and for the speed controller normally, which means your speedo is getting too hot, it's shutting off for safety reasons. If your motor is getting too hot, your car will also stop for safety reasons, that nothing is gonna be damaged. These two options are really making sense, but sometimes when you're on a big race and you are going all in for it, you don't want your car to shut down because of maybe a wrong data which is transmitted here via the sensor cable from the motor to the speed controller, because it can happen that the speed controller gets an information from the motor, hey, I'm running too hot, and the speed controller is shutting off, but your motor is not running too hot, and then your race is finished. So you have the chance to disable these functions, these shut off options, and then your speed controller will not stop the car, but then you're carrying the risk of maybe having a damaged motor or speed controller. This is something you have to decide by yourself, but when you're running on a major race and you are maybe in the A main or you want to do a brilliant job, then you can deactivate the shut off functions, and then you have to go out with the risk of something happening, but you can normally be sure that the speedo will not shut off. And this is something you always have to check before you go out on the racetrack. Has not something to do with the temperature now, but these two options are used by a lot of good drivers. They are always running without these shut off functions. That's the look under the hood of the racing car with all the cooling options. Another important thing when you are trying to get your electronics work cooler is the correct gearing in your car. When you're racing in open classes, in open stock classes, or also in the modified division, your gearing is not limited. So you can wrench the biggest possible pinion and the smallest spur in your car, and you will have an amazing fast car on the straightaway. But your car will also produce a lot of heat because the load on the electronics is super huge when you have a very long gearing. So when your electronics are getting hot and hot, always check the gearing and maybe go down with the pinion or go up with the spur gear. This will help you a lot, and sometimes only the change from maybe a 30 to a 28 pinion can make a huge difference, and you can get your electronics 5, 6, 7, 8 degrees cooler, and this will help a lot. So the gearing is always super important. Also, when you're running in stock classes where the gearing is limited to a maximum of maybe 4.5, and you're running on a super small track where you think that you don't need this long gearing of 4.5, you just can also go down to maybe 4.6, 4.7, 4.8 with a smaller pinion or with a bigger spur gear, and you can decrease the temperature in your electronics as well when you're running in a limited stock class. So the gearing is super important, and sometimes a super long gearing doesn't help a lot because you cannot reach the full top speed on the straightaway because the straightaway is not so long, and you only produce heat, and this will help a lot if you are always checking that you have the perfect gearing for your racetrack you're racing on. So as you easily could see, there are some things you can do, and when you have all these things in mind, you can easily adapt to the weather conditions, to maybe some cooler days or some hotter track conditions as well, and it will bring you a huge benefit, and you can make yourself sure that you will finish the race because your electronics will stay at a lower temperature level. That's the video for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and until the next time here at the ToniSport Newsfeed, as always, we point out, race with ToniSport. You will never race alone. Enjoy the racing and enjoy the beautiful summer which is coming up soon. Goodbye, and until the next time.